executive team and to those who are listening online, and I believe we're live streaming on YouTube. Welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council, 15th of July 2020. I'd like to declare the meeting opened at 4:34, I should say. And I'd like to start with the first item on our agenda, which is acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Kamilaroi people as the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather. I would also like to pay my respects to elders both past and present, and extend that respect to any other Aboriginal community members who may be either here in present or listening online. Councillors, executive team, our next item is prayer. Now I ask if you could please stand for prayer. Eternal God, our loving Father, we come to Thee this day in the name of Jesus Christ, who is the lover of our souls and the Saviour of all mankind. May we feel His love and respond to it. May His Spirit shine in lives that are darkened by worry, doubt or fear. Strengthen and guide those who are trying to do what is right. Make it plain to them. Make us more mindful of the needs of our fellow men and less absorbed in the selfish concerns, that Christ may approve and bless what we do here this day. We ask these blessings in His name. Amen. Please be seated. Our next item is bereavements between the 18th of June and the 15th of July. And we mourn the loss of Kerry Leanne O'Shea, Eric William Gibbons, Elizabeth Ann Tribe, John Cecil Dries, Michael Bruce Sampson, Jan Louise York, Atlee Jean Graham, Maureen Margaret Durham, Troy Anthony Chalmers, Ethel Joan Payne, Daphne Merle Tucci, and Doris Selma Moss. Councils and executive team, and those here that in the gallery, please ask that you stand for 1 minute silence as we pay our respects to the deceased and extend our condolences to their families and friends. Thank you. Please be seated. The next item on our agenda is those present and apologies. We have received one request for leave of absence from Councillor O'Keefe, and we have our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Connor, not with us. He's absent, but we have Katie Manning from the department that is representing in relation to the financial reports. So I'll now call for an elected member, pleased to move that the request for leave of absence is accepted for Councillor O'Keefe. Thank you, Councillor Hook, and seconded by Councillor Moses. And I put that motion on favour. Against? Declare that motion carried. Moving on, item 5.1, which is confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. 5.1 is the ordinary meeting we held on Wednesday the 17th of June. And I'll now call for a mover of that recommendation. Come a motion. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. And seconded by Councillor Swain. Councillor Campbell, you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Got a councillor who'd like to speak against the motion. Ask the question in relation to the minutes. Councillor Swain, second the motion. That be the case, I put the motion on the favour. Against? The motion carries. Moving on, item number 5.2, extraordinary meeting held on Wednesday, the 24th of June. I call for a move and recommendation for the motion to be accepted. Thank you, Councillor Moses, and seconded by Councillor Fuller. Councillor Moses, wish to speak on the motion?
No, that is for me.
Got a councillor who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Fuller is the second of the motion. I put the motion on in favour. Against? Declare the motion carried. Item 6 is declarations of interest. I'll call for any further declarations. We have 2 at this point in time. Any further declarations from councillors or executive team? The 2 that have been received is the first one is from myself in relation to item 17.1. It's for enclosed meeting, expression of interest for preferred supplier or for personal protective equipment. It's a pecuniary interest I'm declaring as I own a company that has offered pricing for this request for quotation. Councillor Hasler has declared for item 15.1, which is Dorothy McKellar Society. It's a less than significant non-pecuniary. But the reason for that is Councillor Hasler is the Secretary of the Dorothy McKellar Memorial Society, and I'll now refer to Councillor Hasler. Will you be staying in the room for? No, I don't know. You'll be leaving the room for the determination and debate. Councillor Fuller, do you have a declaration?
Mr. Mayor, I do actually. I have found in the 356 grants, a member of one of the organisation minus support, and it's non-pecuniary.
For the record, Councillor Fuller has declared an interest in item 11.2, which is section 356 community and sporting grants. It's a less than significant non-pecuniary. The reason for the declaration is that Councillor Fuller is a member of the Gunnedah Miners Support Group. Councillor Fuller, will you be staying in the room for the debate determination? You'll be leaving the room, thank you. Councillor Hasler, do you wish to declare on a similar item? I noticed in the minutes you might have declared on an item for the Dorothy McKellar Society on the 356 grants as well. Do you have a declaration?
I declared at the time first. I really clear that.
Really clear for item 11.2. Councillor Hasler has now added another declaration for item 11.2, section 356, community and small grants, less than significant non-pecuniary. And the reason for that is that Councillor Hasler is the Secretary of the Dorothy McKellar Memorial Society.
There is the Historical Society is opposed to the Dorothy McKellar.
Yes, it's historical society, sorry, yeah.
And you're
And I'm a member, I'm not an executive member, I'm a member.
You're still declaring less than significant non-pecuniary. Thank you. So clarification, the declaration item 11.2, Councillor Hasler for the section 356 community and small grants, less than significant non-pecuniary, as Councillor Hasler is a member of the Gunnedah Historical Society. And Councillor Hasler, will you be staying in the room for the debate determination?
No.
You'll be leaving the room. Thank you. One last call for any further declarations of interest in relation to the ordinary meeting of council. Thank you. I'll now move on to item number 7, and that is community presentations. We have one community presentation today, and that is in relation to item 11.3, which is the COVID response from council. That community presentation is for Ms. Juliana McCarthy, who's the President of the Chamber of Commerce. Ms. McCarthy, if you'd like to come forward now, Ms. Manny will give you a microphone that you can speak into. We appreciate you addressing council as we will be determining item 11.3 later this evening. You have 5 minutes to give your presentation, and then there may be some questions from the floor that councillors may like to ask you. So over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the council. So appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. Councillors know the impact felt by the business community from the drought, COVID-19, and the latest hit is the cancellation of ACWIP this year. This combination of events is surely unprecedented, at least in recent history. I can't account for the whole history of Cronulla Shire Council, but unprecedented action is needed to address this mix of circumstances. We really need to keep our business community going. It's integral to our whole community. The business community tells me it's doing reasonably well in the circumstances, and we undertook a survey early on in the pandemic, and the result was the community was doing surprisingly well considering. Here we are, almost 3 months later, the pandemic is continuing, and nobody knows if we're in the midst of the first wave, the second wave, or an ongoing wave. The pandemic continues to be a concern. We know our economy has contracted, it's in the business papers, we know that people are losing jobs. So I don't need to explain the consequences of that. The Invigorate Gunnedah package to be decided upon today is essential to our well-being. The Council and the Business Development Group is to be commended for its commitment of over $1 billion towards assisting the business community here in Gunnedah. And the scope of the short, medium and long-term initiatives is remarkable. The focus on shopping local, the boost to the business partner program and the investment campaigns really are a focus as I read through the business paper. The industrial and commercial land use strategy, the processing precinct is really intriguing, and the investment opportunities that will bring is something that Chamber looks forward to working with Council on in the future. I will say that whilst handing out the Gunny Money gift cards is a wonderful idea, it sounds like an early Christmas, particularly to those ratepayers who are on pension concessions. I just wonder if it's also going to invite some division, because we've had 3 years of drought and we didn't really give out gift cards as a council or provide other forms of relief. So whilst I really like the idea and I would hope that it would be of direct benefit to the community, I'm just not sure if now is the time for an initiative like that. I'd just like to finish by saying we know, if we live here in Gunnedah District, that the first choice for us is work and invest, and we need to get the message out there further, but we need to look after our business community. It's motivated, it's resilient, it's ready to do more, and this package will only help us survive, thrive, look for opportunities in the future and whatever the new normal is. So I would ask for its adoption on behalf of the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Now, before you go, I might just forward the elected members an opportunity if they have any questions of Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Julia, thank you very much for that presentation. I know it's not easy to address council in some circumstances. From your chamber hat, we've got a business partner program that's got a certain amount of funds to it. That's been going for a number of years and is obviously successful and helps business. There's some consideration, as you're well aware, of increasing the funding. Do you think that's sort of central as far as the Chamber is concerned to stimulating the business economy?
Well, yes, I do. The applications, as known to me, do revolve around engaging other service providers to assist those businesses become more resilient, help them with their marketing campaigns. So I do feel they're a direct benefit. And there's a whole variety of them. Mike Rockland's not here, but I know that he sits on that committee and is also on Chamber. So I do feel that it's a direct benefit. It should be kept going.
Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Well, thank you, Mr. Carter. We do appreciate hearing from yourself in your capacity as President of the Chamber of Commerce, and we certainly at Council enjoy a close relationship with the Chamber and our business community. Councillors, we'll now move on to item number 8, which is a Merrill minute. councillors, you all have a copy. I have given a copy out earlier of a mayoral minute that I'd like to bring to your attention tomorrow. The recommendation that I'm putting forward and I'll be moving is that council makes submission to the New South Wales Electoral Commission that the Gunnedah local government area remain within the state electoral seat of Tamworth. Now, the purpose for this is that the council, of seeking council's endorsement to make the submissions to the New South Wales Electoral Commission is considering all sorts of submissions at the moment that have been put forward. And there is a great deal of number of submissions that have suggested that Gunnedah Shire Council be redistributed into the seat of Barwon and out of the seat of Tamworth. Now, the main purpose, I guess, of this submission that I believe we should be putting forward is simply how closely the Gunnedah Shire Council is aligned to the Tamworth region, but also through NMI Unlimited, the councils that are within that circle. So I'd like to bring to your attention that Gunnedah Shire Council is served by Hunter New England Health Region, and Tamworth-based hospital is our nearest largest medical centre. So therefore, most the residents of our shire, they need more assistance other than what they can achieve at the Gunnedah Hospital, then go forward to our largest medical centre, which is in Tamworth. Gunnedah residents also and businesses rely on air services, major capital to the major capital cities, whether they be Brisbane or Sydney, the closest airport, again, that our residents and business operators can get to is Tamworth Regional Airport. Also of great significant importance to us is for our local police services. The closest district and those that the Gunnedah Police Office or Police Command comes under is the Oxley District Command, and their headquarters are also based in Tamworth. As I said, Gunnedah Shire Council is a member of NMI Unlimited, which is a joint organisation of councils that work closely together in collaboration for the betterment of our region. Those councils that are in there are Walker, Tamworth, Liverpool, Plains, Gunnedah and wider. Now the first four are all in the predominantly Liverpool Plains is split, but those LGAs are in the seat of Tamworth. So we are closely aligned and we collaborate on many different things. Strategically, it is around strategies around water, around road infrastructure, skills, and also currently working on a very important for the Gunnedah Shire strategy, which is on the economic supply chain, which we know is of great importance when we look at employment into the future. The seat geographically of Barwon covers 356,000 square kilometres, which is about 44% of the state of New South Wales landmass. If Gunnedah Shire Council was to move into the seat of Barwon, of course that's going to be greater. The difficulty for any state elected member to service such a large area must be put into question. So councillors, they are a few points that will make up the submission of the Gunnedah Shire Council requesting, as I said, the New South Wales Electoral Commission, the Gunnedah Shire Council, local government area to remain within the seat of Tamworth. So I'm saying that councillors like to move that submission please be put forward. The closing date is today for those submissions. I'll now call for a seconder to my motion. Councillor Hazel.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've been prepared to second it if you're prepared to add the following wording, which I don't think should be a problem. The following that we just written, add the submission to replicate the commentary outlined in the mayoral minute.
Happy to do so.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. So I'll now call, I've spoken to the motion, I'll now call for any elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question.
I'll just make a comment, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question it's just a quick comment. We can't hold community consultation, of course, but I've spoken to quite a number of people, and the first comment that I give is what? At this time, that people are starting to think about elections and shifting boundaries and so forth, so people are absolutely amazed to think that this could even be considered in the conditions that we are at the moment. And the second thing is, the second comment is, well, no way, because obviously all our connections with Tamworth and the Tamworth Electric and the, as you've said, the police and the health and the specialists and so forth. So just in support of your recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Swain. Councillor Azar is the second of the motion. Wish to speak?
I just add that we gave this a bit of a discussion the other day. Whilst unfortunately we haven't had time to have some community consultation, I think by limiting any justification for remaining there for the items you have outlined in your commentary, which was a result of the discussion we've had, I think it would be difficult for people not to, the majority of people not to support what you have recommended. So that's why I'm happy to support it. I think that, as Councillor Swain said, certainly feedback that the limited feedback I've had supports that decision.
Thank you, councillor Azar. I'll now open up and afford any elected member who'd like to also add to this. Councillor Jim.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in the background on your mayoral minute, it would have been the electoral commission that would have promulgated the redistribution, would it not? It says there that council's been made aware that New South Wales Electoral Commission has received a number of proposals that would see Gunnedah Shire Council move. Those proposals we looked at the other day in the meeting came from the various parties, but the New South Wales State Electoral Commission would have initiated the actual redistribution, would it not?
My understanding, councillor Campbell, is that they're on a cycle. Both state and federally, there's a review of electoral boundaries. This is simply a cycle.
It's just that when we put that the text in on the submission, that maybe that needs to be reworded.
I think Councillor Campbell was only talking about the commentary from the commentary as the word rather than those paragraphs.
Thank you.
That's noted. Okay, councillors, I'm now going to put that motion on in favour. Aye. Declare that unanimously carried. Thank you for your support. Next, we have item number 9, which is General Manager's Report. I'll hand to Mr. Brock to detail his recommendation on item 9.1, which is GoCo fees and charges 2020-21.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, councillors and members of the public. It's a long agenda, so I won't labour this one and simply commend the report to you. I'm pleased to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation to become a motion. Thank you, councillor Luke, and seconded by councillor Swain. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's a tough, big, wide world out there, and I do appreciate GoCo and its attention to detail and knowing where its financial position is, and have trust in the management of that organisation to only make these price changes in response to what the actuality is. So I will be in favour of this resolution motion.
Thank you. I now call for elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. Councillor Swain is the second of the motion. You wish to speak? That be the case, I put the motion on favour.
Aye.
Against? So the motion carried. Moving on. Thank you, Mr. Brock, for your contribution. Item number 10, councillors, is the Director of Corporate and Community Services report. I'll call on Mr. Muldoon to detail his recommendation, starting with item 10.1, Local Government Remuneration Tribunal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put the report to the council for consideration. Basically, there was a generic 2.5% increase mooted from many councils. However, my party decided on a nil increase, the tribunal did, and also Gunnedah remained in the rural category. So I put the information to your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Muldoon. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation. Thank you, councillor Swain. Now becomes the motion, seconded by councillor Moses. Councillor Swain, you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Thank you.
Now call for elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. Councillor Moses is the seconder of the motion. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That be the case, I put the motion on in favour. Against? Declare that motion carried. Moving on. Item 10.2, postponement of September 2020 local government elections. I'll hand back to Mr. Muldoon to detail the recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Again, through you. Just bringing council's attention to the fact that
it's now been legislated that the next election will be the 4th of September 2021. In addition to that, the recommendation includes a rescheduling of the meetings up to the prior to that September election date, which is included in the report. So I put the recommendation for council consideration.
Chairman, I'm happy to move that. It's the first time I've been re-elected without a vote.
I call for a second to the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Hawke. And Councillor Haslett, I'll now afford you the opportunity to speak to you. Wish to speak.
I don't want to lose the election.
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Hawke is the second of the motion. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That'll be the case. For the motion, all in favour? Against? The motion carried. Moving on, item 10.3, request for assistance, Canada Stedford Society. And I'll hand back to Mr. Mulder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you again. But rather than later on the report, the information is all there in relation to the initiative undertaken by Stedford Society during COVID-19, and I put the recommendation for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Muldoon. Our call for elected member. Thank you, Councillor Fuller has moved the recommendation. It now becomes the motion, seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak?
Only just to say that they do an excellent job, and I think that's good worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Moses is the second of the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That be the case. Put the motion, all in favour? Against? Declare that motion carried. Moving on, item 10.4, outstanding resolution register. I'll hand back to Mr. Muldoon to detail the recommendation that is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, a copy of the resolution register is attached as an appendix to the report, and I put forward the recommendation for information.
Thank you, Mr. Muldoon. I'll now call for elected member. Councillor Luke has moved the recommendation. It now becomes the motion. It's seconded by Councillor Haslett. Thank you. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is probably to Mr. Bartlett regarding the Simpson Bridge, 25.09/17. Are we any further down the track in finalising that ongoing saga? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swain, for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I need to check with the Chief Engineer exactly on where that one's up to. However, my understanding is that we shouldn't be far off from being in a position to present a report back to Council.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I understand that it's been sitting in there with the department for a long time, but it's nearly 3 years, so it's a long time. Thank you.
Councillor Haslett, is the second of the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, I'd like to see that there is progress on the cleaning up of 3 sites in town. There seems to be some progress in that area. Is it positive?
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question before I put the motion. Be the case, I put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare the motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Muldoon, for your contribution to our July ordinary meeting. Moving on, item number 11. And I'll hand to Mr. Johns to detail his recommendation, starting with item 11.1, development application number 2020-029. Mr. Johns.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you, councillors. This report relates to the demolition and replacement of the stock loading ramp at the Gunnedah Showgrounds. And the reason it's before you is because it's on land that council controls. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Call for remove the recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Hawke, and seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Hawke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only to say it's been a while that this one's been coming, I believe. It's good to see that it potentially coming to fruition. Thank you very much.
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion. Ask a question. Councillor Moses is the second of the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That be the case, I put the motion. All in favour? Against? The motion carried. The next item, we have 2 declarations of interest. That is in relation to item 11.2. Please let the record show the declarations from Councillor Haslett and Councillor Fuller. Rather, they leave the room for the debate, discussion, determination of the records show they have now left the chambers. So, Mr. Johns, item 11.2 is section 356 small grants, community and sports. I'll hand back to you to detail the recommendation to council.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this report seeks endorsement seeks endorsement recommendation made by the section 356 small grants, community and sport advisory group. They recommend that you allocate 6 grants to the community cohort within that grant program, 3 grants to sporting groups. And interestingly, it also recommends that you roll over $7,000 into next financial year's section 356 grants. And I guess the reason for that is that we believe due to COVID applications, despite the fact that we extended out the opportunity for people to have input into that and send emails out, many groups in town just aren't meeting due to COVID. And I think as a result of that, we've seen a reduction in the number of grant applications.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. I call for an elected member to move. Thank you, Councillor Luke, and seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Moses is the second of the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All then, councillors, I'd like to put the motion. All in favour? I'll call that unanimously supported. Thank you very much. Could we now request Councillor Fuller and Councillor Hasler join us back in the chambers? Ms Markey, please have the record show Councillor Fuller and Hasler have rejoined council meeting and are in the chambers. Councillors, our next item is 11.3 Community Resilience Funds, COVID-19 Business Recovery Package, Invigorate Gunnedah, and I'll hand back to Mr. Johns to detail the recommendation before you.
I'd like to move that we resolve in the committee of the whole, Mr. Mayor, to discuss this. I think it's a bit complicated, and I think some of us have concerns with some aspects, so that's my motion.
I'll now call for a seconder to the motion to move into committee of the whole. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I'll put that motion. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Declare that carries. Now in committee of the whole, and I'll hand back to Mr. Johns to detail the recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this report obviously presents to you the COVID-19 Business Recovery Package, Invigorate Gunnedah. The package is the second in a series of support packages to help the Gunnedah community through the horrible pandemic that we're currently experiencing. As you can see from the report and the number of workshops we've had in relation to this matter, I put this recommendation to you and that recommend that you adopt the package. I also recommend that you allocate the requisite funds as outlined in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Councillors, we're in committee of the whole. We have that recommendation you see before you. Ms. Markey, if I could ask you to scroll up the screen, please. The recommendation before you, councillors, is in 2 parts. First part, that council adopt the Community Resilience COVID-19 Business Recovery Package, Invigorate Gunnedah. And point 2, endorse the allocation of funds required to implement the package, being $600,000 reallocation of the unspent funds from the Community Resilience Program Farmer Army budget and $205,500 from the general revenue. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion as seen.
It's not actually a motion at this point, it's a recommendation.
Recommendation.
So would you like to move the motion?
As seen on the screen at the moment, this is to open up some debate, and obviously there will be much debate, but the motion reads that Council, 1, adopt the Community Resilience COVID-19 Business Package, Invigorate Gunnedah, with the following amendments to the draft document. Item 1.2 be removed. B, item 1.3 be removed, and 60% allocated to item 3.2, 20% to item 5.1, and 20% to item 5.6. And C, item 2.2 be removed and funds allocated to item 3.7. And the remaining item, number 2, remains the same as written.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that? What will be a motion? It's seconded.
I don't think we need a motion at the moment, sorry. Mr Mayor, do we, if we're in committee of the whole, we're discussing it generally?
It would be nice to have a motion to debate against, but I am in your hands, councillors. We're in committee of the whole. Somebody like to start? Councillor, would you like to talk to the motion? You, perhaps.
I doubt if I'm going to be able to influence my fellow councillors, but the first thing I'd like to say is that, generally speaking, we've got a motion here which, number one, states that we should be spending the extra $205,500. Back in October, we voted enthusiastically to support our local community with $1 million from our own funds, and we're able to get further funds from the New South Wales government and the federal government to match that money. Now, we have a figure of $600,000 here sitting over, left over from part of that funding, and I think that that's admirable, that should be used, because the intent hasn't changed. It is to stimulate this economy. And I believe that the extra $205,500 would be well worth adding to that. We are in a really deep situation at the moment. I can understand why some councils are reticent to spend that extra money at this particular point in time. However, if we don't stimulate our economy now, it may be too late in the future. If we wait until people are absolutely on their knees and then throw a little bit of money at it, we are in a tight budgetary situation ourselves at the moment, not at the point where we can't afford an extra $205,500. Now, I'm open for discussion on how that money should be reallocated, but I do believe that item 1.2 should be removed, and that money, which was, I believe, should go towards, let me go back. The Christmas bonus, I think that money at the moment could be seen as really just paying themselves. I don't think it's a particularly good exercise. I'm not sure that it should be spent where it is. Most of those funds, the $25,000 of that $27,000 has already been allocated for a Christmas bonus. I think it should stay where it is, not be reallocated, but just be dismissed from the actual package. I also believe that item 1.3 provide the Gunnedah Shire ratepayers on the pension access to $200 worth of galley money gift card. I think that it is one that is only going to be fair to part of the pensioner population. I don't believe that we can actually give those funds to people who really most need it. Those people who are on the ratepayer roll are people that probably do need the funds, but I don't think that they're in the situation that some of those pensioners would be who are non-ratepayers and who are renting within this shire. And I believe they're the ones who are going to miss out. So I think while it's got the right intent, and I really admire staff for putting this suggestion forward, I don't believe that it is actually a good move. I don't think if we could give it to the entire population of pensioners, I think that it have some merit. But at the moment, it doesn't allow that to happen. Therefore, the funds could be redistributed in areas where we can actually help stimulate our economy by helping our business people. And that's the whole idea behind distributing in those three fashions. Item 2.2, which to be removed. Because ACWIP is no longer taking place, therefore it becomes redundant to need those funds. There has been some suggestion those funds could be used for a similar event, but it wouldn't be surrounding a major event like ACWIP. And without a major event to actually bring forward a street parade or something like that, I don't think that you're going to get the local population to actually support that to the extent that the money would actually indicate. So therefore, I can commend the motion as put, and I just seek somebody else's support to second it so that we can open it up for debate. I do know that the parts of that motion I think people do agree with, but I think it should be at least supported so that we can open it up for further debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hook. I'll talk in support, as we're in committee of the whole, of your motion. I'll also talk in support of the document and the opportunity that's put before councillors by our organisation, led by the Economic Development team under the auspices of Mr. Johns and his team. This package has been designed specifically to support our business community and therefore jobs and employment in our community based on the effects of COVID-19. You see, councillors, in page 9 of your document, there are 6 key areas that are focused on that our organisation, through collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce and the business community, are telling us are key areas that need focus right now. And that's why it's before us. So therefore I speak in favour, Councillor Hook. First is supporting local spending. Second is bringing vibrancy back to our CBD. We see the effects as you walk down and drive down our main street at the moment, which is not different to any other regional or rural community within New South Wales that's been affected by drought and then COVID-19, and of course the question about what's to come yet with COVID-19. But there are vacancies there. So there are actions within this document that will help to address that, strengthen our business and encourage resilience, our business community. We're nothing without population in our community. How do we keep people if there is not jobs? What happens to the self-esteem if you're not employed? How do you support your family? What else happens in our community that will cost much more than the money that we're potentially going to spend if this is endorsed? And I fully am in support of the actions of our organisation. The fourth item is growing the tourism sector. This is I believe personally, my personal view is this is an area that we are not strong in. We have opportunities before us that will help to strengthen our position in the tourism marketplace. We know we have a koala park in design at the moment. We have funding for, we're going to deliver. That will help us with tourism. But within this package, there are more items that will help us and put us in a stronger place to make sure we get better visitation into our community. First one is promoting Gunnedah as the first choice to live, work and invest. We have aspirations of growth. We have small growth at the moment, but again, we know with our population, we will simply just be a council that's going backwards and it will be difficult to survive. We have general interest at the moment in investment. We need to see that go forward. That what's listed in this document will support us to help get that message out and encourage investment in people who are looking. And it's an ideal time because of COVID-19. There are people in metropolitan areas who are thinking, well, I'm doing this from home now, why don't I have a better place to live and do this? So there are opportunities for us to pass that message. And the sixth part of this document is driving local infrastructure and creating more jobs. We know how important that is, and we've done, I believe, as an organisation, great work in this area over the last 3.5 years. You only have to drive around Gunnedah to see the construction that is underway, the people that are employed, the stimulus that's happening in our community. We need to continue that through this recession, through COVID, and for the years to come. So actions that are listed in this document, I'm very supportive of because that will continue to support what we've already been doing well, but we can't become complacent. We need to continue to do that well. So when it comes to the reallocation of funds, I'm fully supportive of Councillor Hook and your motion you had before there. I believe adding more money to item 3.2, which is the business partner program, is wise. We've heard just earlier in the council meeting from the President of the Chamber of Commerce talking of the importance of the business partner program and the great work that it does throughout our community. This has been established for so many years, but it's limited in the money that it actually has allocated for $40,000. By turbocharging the business partner program right now, when we're trying to encourage businesses to keep people employed. We know JobKeeper is forecast to close at the end of September. We need to support our businesses to keep people employed. We need to support our businesses to keep them growing. If they want to go to stage 2 of their business, if they want to in some way grow their business, I think this is a great way for us to work with our business community to see that happen, for us to enable that growth within our community and specifically around employment. So I see turbocharging that will give us all the tools we need to support employment in our community over the next 12 months, which is also important. And also items 5.1 and 5.6, our economic development team have created some magical videos and information that we can now share. There are allocations there of $50,000 in each of those 2 areas to get that message out of Gunnedah. We all know it in Gunnedah, but get it out, get it into the region, get it into the metropolitan areas, get it right throughout New South Wales. Tell people just how great it is to live in and the quality of life to live in the Shire of Gunnedah. Let's share our opportunities for employment. We know that there are plenty of employees that are looking for skilled resources at the moment within their business. And also 5.6, that investment opportunity that we know we need that money, we need those businesses. So I fully support that, Councillor. And item 2.2, unfortunately, very difficult thing to come to terms with. 48 Act whip won't happen this year. So therefore, I also believe having a night whip of some other fashion will be difficult, and reallocating that to item 3.7. We know a lot of businesses that have been established for a very long time in shops or in shop fronts that have poor access for those people with disabilities, wheelchairs or walking frames. It's quite difficult to find the money, especially in the current terms that we're dealing with coming out of drought now with COVID, to actually improve the access to your businesses. I think putting that money into that fund, which is a new initiative, and I think a great step forward for council, is money well spent as well. So Councillor Hook, I think you're on the money, and I encourage my councillors to consider supporting the motion you put forward. Do I have any councillors who'd like to speak? Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, as I said before, I'll be voting against item 1.2 and 1.3 that they be removed. I know that's articulating it up there. I'll be voting against I'm happy for the funding from Night Whip to go to an access allocation, but I'll be voting against the extra 200. It's an extra $160,000 for the business partner program. As I've said, I'm concerned about things. I'm concerned about the fact that almost everything here is for business. It's not like as if we're not supporting the businesses. We are. But that amount of money, when we're looking at the deficit that we're looking at as a council, I think people have got carried away with their dollar figure that's tied up with council, and forgetting that some of it, or most of it, is tied up. And I've got a concern that we could get further down the track and then we'll be unable to help anyone if we're in difficulties ourselves. People have said to me they've never seen a council who's spent so much money as what we have done in the last 4 years, and it's not going to be able to continue. And I'm sorry, but I've lived through the hard times. You haven't. So I think it's an understanding that the reason why we're in a position that we are at the moment is because of careful and restrained spending, and the staff being very careful with their recommendations. And there were just some things that I'm just not happy with in this whole process. Thank you.
We're committing the whole council. So who else would like to speak? Councillor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I would like a few of I'm not in favour of the motion that was put forward by Councillor Hook. I think that we did some sensible planning with during when the drought was having an economic impact on our community, and now the drought hardship has been replaced by a COVID hardship, and I think that it's quite fair to reallocate the $600,000 from the Farmer Army budget I would not be in favour of introducing or drawing on any funds from the general reserve. And I would like, I guess, item 1.2 to be removed, item 1.3 to be removed, the pensioner concession, and also the item 2.2. At this stage, I'd like that whole amount removed. I think we are a flexible council. We don't know when it's going to be easy to hold things such as festivals and events. So I think that there's certainly ample time to fund more activities in the community that does mean that there are crowds of people. So I think if we actually sort of remove those items, if somebody can help me where we're actually up to with money, so that would be, so that's 165 plus 10 is 175.
Plus 2.
202,000.
So with that, then I would actually sort of, I would like to have those removed and only draw on another 3,500 from general revenue, and and to, instead of putting that 600,000 from the Farmer Army budget back into general reserve or general funds, to allocate that towards the current crisis that this community is in with those changes.
Councillors, we have an opportunity to look at a motion before we come out of committee of the whole, or we can come out of committee of the whole and then we can look at motions. I think what we might do is look at motions when we come out of committee of the whole, and we'll continue on with our debate at the moment. So, Councillor Hook, would you like to, Councillor Haslett, would you like to speak?
I know. My only comment would be, as I said previously, before we went this afternoon, I'd be supporting a motion along the lines that Councillor Luke has just enunciated. I would be happy enough to support it to 3.5, begrudgingly, but not 205, 500. I'll speak on that when formal meeting resumes. So I think at this stage we have supported our community very well with a $1 million resilience fund to start with, which gained another $2 million from the state and federal. Very happy to follow through with that expenditure, albeit in a slightly different fashion, which it was originally planned. We also had, we're told that regularly by our officers, spending now doing 300% more infrastructure works than what we would normally be doing. That's 300% more expenditure by this community going back in our community in many cases. So I think, and we've also tonight, let alone on previous meetings when we've already committed to the Peak Ridge, for example, if we are successful in the grant there, we've already committed well over $1 million for that project, unfunded. Tonight we've got 43,000 from the airport being suggested, with another 8,000 from the swimming pool, small amount, but it's all adding up with unfunded amounts.
The jogging fund, yes.
Yes, we can go on, but we'll speak more about that later, but there are the reasons I'm very happy to support the transfers of 600,000, but I can't support the transfer of another 205, 500 from the general fund.
Councillors, any further comments before we come out of committee of the whole? If that's the case, can I please have a councillor move a motion to come out of committee of the whole? Thank you, Councillor Hook and Councillor Moses. I now put that motion. All in favour? Against? Okay, that carried. Now move back into our standard standing orders for council meeting, and we are speaking about item 11.3. Councillors, you have a recommendation from this organisation that reads in two parts. One, that council adopts the Community Resilience COVID-19 Business Recovery Package, Invigorate Canada, and two, endorse the allocation of funds required required to implement the package, being $600,000 reallocation of unspent funds from the Community Resilience Program, Farmer Army budget, and a further $205,500 from the general fund. Councillors, I'll now call, do we have a mover of the recommendation to become a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move something as an alternative. I'll try and keep it simple, because I think this could get a little complex. I just move the recommendation minus the wording from, in the second point, from end 205,500 from the general revenue. That allows the deletion of all of the items which Councillor Luke referred to, being, I think, and I think the staff have already taken on board clearly what was indicated in the discussions, but the 1.2, 1.3, 2.2, and I think they would probably find out the other $3,500 worth of their own initiative. I don't think we need to necessarily point any further than what has been highlighted by the discussion today, both in the workshop and in the committee as a whole. And I think that keeps it very simple. And
Councillor Haslett, can I just hold you there? We need a seconder for the motion, but first I want clarity from the General Manager that your motion as seen on the screen, it will be adequate. My understanding is we should have a clear list of the items that should be removed if we're removing funds from the package that has been recommended to us by Council. Mr. General Manager, can you please confirm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I appreciate Councillor Haslett's attempt at keeping this simple and brief. However, touching on what the Mayor has just said on 2 points. Firstly, the issue with regard to the 3,500 staff cannot reallocate an amount that requires Council's approval to reallocate an amount from any other existing budget. So I would suggest that we actually do either allocate 3,500 or pick a budget to remove it from. The second point, I'm sorry, Councillor Haslett, the second point is just that I certainly understand the items that were led by Councillor Luke and discussed in committee as a whole. However, it would be prudent to name up the items that you're choosing to remove in the motion, otherwise it leaves staff in a situation that without clear guidance, it could be questioned at a later point as to whether we did what council intended. So I would, if councillors wouldn't mind, just getting clear guidance on that.
I include therefore, yes, Ms. Mark is already with the following amendment or deletions. I just remove 1.3 removed, nothing after removed, and 2.2 removed, and then we add
The whole thing, just the lines after
sorry, item 1.2 removed, item 1.3 removed, be removed, and item 2.2 be removed. Yes, standard removal, no reallocation. Back there. And we go to 2 resilience width and a further 3,500 allocated from the general fund unrestricted. I think that simplifies it and also meets the general manager's requirements for greater clarity as to how the reduction will be made.
Thank you, Councillor Haslett. I'll now call for a seconder to the motion you said before you. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Haslett, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think I had the opportunity in the committee as a whole. I would reinforce, I think we need some fiscal restraint here. I'd be happy to speak more length if there are speakers against, and I have a right to reply.
I'll now call for elected members who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. At this point, wish I had an opportunity, but I don't, so I won't. Councillor Fuller is a second.
Just a moment, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question to Councillor Haslett. Your intention with the allocation of $3,500 is to basically keep the status quo within the remaining amount of money. I just think that amount, $3,500, is not correct. I think it's more like $28,000 if you want to keep the status quo.
Refer to Mr. Johns being the director. Can you please clarify the funds?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from what I understand from the debate that I've heard, removal of those three items will require additional $3,500 to come from unrestricted general fund in order to fund the whole package as it stands with those items removed.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller, as a second of the motion, you wish to speak?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think we've had a lot of debate over the last few weeks, and yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments, councillors, before I put the motion? Councillor Luke.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that the work that the economic development team has put into this is wonderful. I actually sort of do think it shows a lot of creativity with respect to keeping the energy going as much as we can under these tough times, and thank them for the work that they actually have done in with respect to this package. I think it's fantastic stuff, and lots of different areas to actually invigorate this economy. So thank you.
Councillors, I'll now put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Moving on, item 11.4, which is a revote of capital funds, economic development strategy and international engagement strategy. I'll hand to Mr. Johnson to detail the recommendation for you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you, as you've already eloquently outlined, this is a report seeking revote of funds, the economic development strategy and also the international engagement strategy. So councillors know there have been works commenced on both of these important projects, so there haven't been funds expended. And it was also seen by staff as a logical step to ensure that the local strategic planning statement had been adopted by council before we then played into two other critical documents. Just for council's information, the economic development team and I have gone out to quote for the economic development strategy. We've received about 7 or 8 different quotes for that work. And we're very close to making a decision on which consultant will be used, so we hope to update councils by the end of the week on that. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. I'll now call for an elected member to move the recommendation to become a motion. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, and seconded by Councillor Fuller. Councillor Campbell, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Fuller is the second of the motion. Do you wish to
No,
speak?
thanks, Mr. Mayor.
In case of the motion, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion carried. Moving on, item 11.5, Northern Regional Planning. I'll hand back to Mr. Johns to detail that recommendation that you see before you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you, this report seeks endorsement of local governments for the Northern Regional Planning Panel. Councils will also ask, in addition to the recommendation that I've made, that you, if you see fit to appoint me to that position as technical rep, that we also have an alternate delegate in that space. And at this stage, I'd like to nominate the team leader building strategic projects, Mr. Blake O'Mullane. If, as I said, you see fit to appoint me to the technical rep position, I would also need an alternate, and that should have been in the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Councillors, I'll now call for nominations. As you see in the second item of the resolution, it's suggesting that a councillor be nominated as an alternate to the mayor for this position. I'll now call for nominations for that position.
I nominate Councillor Luke.
Councillor Luke, do you accept the nomination?
Yeah.
I'll now call for further nominations.
I'll nominate Mayor.
I'm including the motion. So what we're looking for is that first alternative. I'll now call for any other, any further nominations for the position. Councillor Swain, do you accept the nomination? You don't accept the nomination? I'll now call for any further nominations. There are no nominations. Congratulations, Councillor Luke. You are the alternate as far as the motion is concerned. And now, councillors, you see the motion before you in 4 parts. I'll now call for an elected member to move that recommendation to become the motion. Thank you, Councillor Moses, and seconded by Councillor Campbell. Councillor Moses, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Campbell, as a second of the motion, you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Be the case, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare that motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Johns, for your contribution to our ordinary meeting of council. Moving on, item 12, which is Director of Infrastructure Services reports. I'll call on Mr. Bartlett to detail his recommendations 1 through to 17. 1 through to 10. We'll start with item 1, 12.1, which is the 2020 National Local Roads and Transport Congress delegate report to detail to council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Following the 2020 New South Wales Local Roads Congress, the New South Wales Roads and Transport Directorate, which is a partnership between local government New South Wales and the New South Wales Division of the Institute of Public Works Engineers Australia, published a conference communique, and a copy of that communique has been attached to this report for your perusal.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Council, as you see the recommendation before you that reads that the information be received and noted, I'll now call for elected member. Thank you, Councillor Luke has now moved that recommendation. It is the motion, and seconded by Councillor Swain. Councillor Luke has moved it. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Swain is the second of the motion. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Be the case, put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 12.2, 2020 LG New South Wales Water Management Conference. I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendations before you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to invite council to nominate a councillor to attend the Local Government New South Wales Water Management Conference for 2020, being co-hosted by Narrabri Shire Council from 6th to 8th October 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll call for nominations for that position.
Councillor Campbell.
Councillor Campbell, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It's like we're quite popular. Lots of councillors want to nominate you there. Thank you. I'll now call for any further nominations. I'll now call for any further nominations for the position. If there are no further nominations, Councillor Campbell, congratulations, you're up to now. Councillors, you see the motion before you. I'll now call for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hook, and seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Hook, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Moses is the second of the motion. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, before I put this motion, I'd just like to add my thank you and admiration for Councillor Campbell on his focus over this term of council on all matters water. He's taken up the opportunity to chair Region 11 of the Murray-Darling Association, which is the big body of the for local government that relates to the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, and doing a great job, and was recently re-elected to the chair of that position. Councillor Campbell also represented council at this same conference last year, and we received a report back showing just how important the conference is and how rewarding it was for our representatives to be there. So I'm very thankful for your commitment in relation to water and your position for council there. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Now put that motion. All in favour? Against? The motion carried. Moving on to item 12.3, that is Regional Airports Program co-contribution, and I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval to accept grant funding offered under the federal government's Regional Airports Program for safety and security upgrades to Gunnedah Airport, and allocate a 50% co-contribution to support the grant's requirements, being $198,000.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Hook, and seconded by. I'll call for a seconder to the motion. Thank you, Councillor Luke. Councillor Hook, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of our recent discussions, I think there'd probably be some reticence about spending an extra $198,000 of our council money. However, we have got major infrastructure in the airport, and it becomes a matter of keeping our standard up and keeping that infrastructure up to date. we are certainly looking down the road of reclassifying the airport, and this would become part of that reclassification if we have to upgrade. It is a safety issue, especially around the lighting. CCTV is also very important out there. I think it is money that we have to spend because that is a very important part of our local infrastructure, and I recommend that we actually allocate this money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hook. Our fourth elected member would like to speak against the motion. I ask a question. Councillor Haslam.
Well, it's likely I'll speak against the motion, but I would like to ask a couple of questions beforehand.
Can we just start one at a time so it's not confusing for the appropriate manager that you may be speaking with? One question and then an answer, and then the next question, please, Councillor Haslam.
Certainly. Well, to me, it's a bit confusing that we're in the report that tells us we're going to take money from monies allocated to from future years and bring it back to this year, and then we're told we're taking it out of the general revenue. So that's because it wasn't in this year's fund, so we've got to bring it back. All right. Now the second question relates to.
Sorry, Councillor Haslam. So you're looking for clarification that that's correct? That was the first.
Right, that's correct. The second thing is in the paragraph above the box with the figures, it says accordingly is recommended that 200,000 allocated to defence be reallocated, and then down below under the commentary it says council's long-term financial plan proposed is 142 for runway line renewal and 57,000 in the 220 defence renewal. So which figure is correct? The 200,000 defence or 57,000?
Thank you, Councillor Haslam, for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The $200,000 that's referred to is an element of the grant funding application that was submitted. The two figures that you referred to will be lower than that. The 142 and the 57 actually relate to figures that are identified already in the long-term financial plan. So one figure is in the grant application and the other one is in the LTFP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'll speak technically against this motion, but mainly to bring Council's attention to a number of factors. I can wear this possibly passing away and voting with me myself today, but if you look at this motion and the next motion, which asks for another 43,000 to be allocated for a consultant study, I found that very few consultants give a report which doesn't suggest that we spend many more dollars as a result of the consultant report. But what we've done, if we pass this motion today, is we've taken all the money that we talked about that we're going to allocate for the next 2 years, brought it back this year, spend all that, get a report, and the next motion is carried, a consultant report which recommends further expenditure which we haven't allocated for, etc. I can see us spending a lot of money on the airport. Now, my question is, and we have a policy which we just talked about today, about 30% retrieval of 30% of the cost in our income. Like we're not even meeting that at the moment, we're about 24%. I had a very interesting, I'm listening yesterday morning to the manager of Tamworth Airport. $100,000 debt unsecured creditors are not going through. It says they're not in too bad a position, but presently COVID security charges subsidy by the federal government. There are other costs, have to keep operating 24 hours a day. Costs don't diminish. 2.9 million per year. Not getting income to reduce those costs. Income is going nowhere near covering the costs. It's going to take 2 years to get back to the pre-COVID levels. When he was asked whether ratepayers would pay the cost, he said not at the present moment because they have reserves. But they've had reserves because they've been getting, as we learned today, $17.50 from 200,000 passengers, plus the income from their charges, parking charges. Last year, they got 150,000 passengers, and this year they're talking about getting 120,000, and this year possibly 50,000. So he said ratepayers may be soon having to cover that cost in Tamworth before long. That's with an airport with 6 flights a day. They received 2.6 million grant, but have to pay half of that, 1.3 million themselves. Airport lighting needs to be upgraded or else can't operate at night time or in bad weather. It's not a matter of remaining protected, but remaining operation. That is an airport which has flights, regular flights from 2 or 3 airlines. Aerodromes are not getting income to cover the costs, you said. Still charging money. And I just mentioned the number of flights, the number of passengers, 200,000 down to 130, lucky to make 50,000 this year. My point is, if we're spending a lot of money on the airport, at the moment it's basically ratepayers' money. We asked for a report to tell us how we can increase our income. To increase the income. And if I had saw a business plan that shows us that we can make significant income to help cover the present costs and costs that we're likely to have to pay down the track if the airstrip is in such bad condition as it was pointed out to us today, which is going to cost us a lot more to upgrade. You know, I can support it. But we haven't seen any business plan or any likely, as far as I can see, likely means of increasing our income, yet we're increasing our expenditure significantly. And that concerns me. If we had lots of people in our community utilising it, fine. But it is a limited use airport at the moment, costing considerable amount already of ratepayers' money, when we have a policy of 30% retrieval cost, and we're not meeting that. So what I'm saying to you, I can see this motion going through today, but I'm going to be very, very careful down when it comes forward with the consultant's report. And I believe we need to have a consultation with our community, and probably 12 months' time when there's an election and a discussion can take place as to whether we want to spend considerable amounts of money on an airport, which has, I mean, just to finish off, you've got articles like this, the Saturday Herald. Qantas Army of Zombie Pilots, 300 Qantas pilots being stood down, and many of them getting redundancy packages. And someone might be trying to tell me that we're going to have a viable air service here, when the only way Rex survived was by significant subsidy by the state and federal government. What is our airport going to do for our community, and at what cost are we prepared to pay for it?
Thank you, Councillor Hasler. Councillor Luke is the second in the motion. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now call for a further elected member that would like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillors, you see the motion before you in two parts. I'm now going to put the motion. Those that are in favour of the motion. Those that are against. Those that are against. I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 12.4, and that is Gunnedah Airport pavement inspection. I'll now hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation before.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek approval to roll over funding already allocated to commence a comprehensive pavement airport inspection and to seek additional funding to complete the project.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation received before you as a motion. I'll now call for a mover of the motion for the second time. If it's not moved, it will lapse for the third time. Calling for a mover of the motion you see before you, or the recommendation you see before you, to become a motion. There are no movers. I declare that that has lapsed. And we'll move forward on to item 12.5, which is the Gunnedah Library door replacement. I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation before you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek Council's concurrence on the General Manager's decision under delegation to reallocate funding to replace the automatic door at the library.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I now call for elected member. Thank you, councillor Fuller, and seconded by councillor Swain. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor, only that it's a great idea, it's got to be done, and let's get it done right away.
I'll now call for an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Swain is the seconder of the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
That be the case, councillors, I'll put the motion on favour. Against? I think that's unanimous. I'll declare it carried anyhow. So item 12.6, Gunnedah Jockey Club is the next item, grant co-contribution request, and I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett for detailed recommendation report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek approval to allocate $15,000 as a co-contribution from council for the Gunnedah Jockey Club's grant contribution in a grant application in the Crown Reserves Improvement Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation you see before you. Thank you, councillor Moses, and seconded by councillor Fuller. Councillor Moses, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Swain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a question. I'm just concerned that we're getting amounts like this that are just seem to be coming out of the blue, and I'm wondering why we've been requested for this money, how long that Jockey Club have known about it, and you know, we've been talking about money already so much today, but we've just, I wouldn't like to add up how much we've already spent just tonight. Obviously, it's not an announcement in the budget, so the budget seems as if it's gone out the window, and we're just pulling amounts out of the fund as requests come in.
Mr. Bartlett, would you like to answer?
Thank you, councillor Swain, for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that the request from the Jockey Club was made aware of the grant funding application process on the 7th of June, and I believe that they requested a contribution from council in the last week of June.
I'll now call for, councillor Fuller, sorry, is the second of the motion. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Or for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion? Ask a further question? Be the case then, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Declare that motion carried. Moving on to item number 12.7, which is disability lift at the Gunnedah Memorial Pool, and I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett for detailed recommendation report. Mr. Mayor, 12.7 is a disability lift, I believe.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, my apologies. The purpose of this report is to seek funding to purchase a replacement disability access lift for the Gunnedah Memorial Swimming Pool.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Call for elected member to move. Councillor Moses, your microphone's on. Are you moving the motion? I'll now call for, thank you, Councillor Fuller moves the motion, and it's seconded by Councillor Luke. Councillor Fuller.
Only to say that it's an absolutely essential for our swimming pool. But what happened to our other one? Can anyone tell me what happened to the other lift? Was it
Thank you, Councillor Fuller, for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the other lift was at the end of its life when it failed.
Thank you.
Now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Luke is the second of the motion. Wish to speak? Be the case, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare that motion carried. Moving on, item number 12.8, which is capital rollover of the Donnelly Fields irrigation system. And I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation you see before you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek approval to roll over the capital allocation for the Donnelly Fields irrigation system to the 2020-21 financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll now call for an amendment to move the recommendation to become a motion. Thank you, Councillor Luke, and seconded by Councillor Luke. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I often walk my dog down that way, not in an off-leash park, but just down by the fields. And it's a very sad thing in the middle of summer to see swamps of water all over the place, and yeah, other areas probably dry. So I think to upgrade the irrigation is a very good idea.
Now, call for elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. Councillor Swain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a question, Mr. Bartlett. It was held up because of the drought. Was that the reason we're rolling it over, or because of manpower?
Thank you, councillor Swain. The question through you, Mr. Mayor. No, the previous resolution to allocate that funding and not as part of that initial resolution have it rolled over to this financial year was an oversight of staff. With the limited amount of remaining time left in the financial year, it was impractical to be able to deliver that project inside the remaining time.
Councillor Hook is the second in the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are any further questions or comments, councillors, before I put the motion? In the case, put the motion. All in favour? No. Against? Declare the motion carried. Item 12.9 is put by reserve. Councillors, you have a recommendation before you, and I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to provide information and clarification to councillors of council's obligation for the management of porcupine reserve.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Corporate elected member to move the recommendation received.
I'll leave with recommendation, but I'll also ask a question.
Thank you, Councillor Hasler, seconded by Councillor Swain. Councillor Hasler, would you like to now speak?
I'd like to know, through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bartlett, the council's resolution 34.02/20. Is this report as a response to that, or are we expecting a further report?
Thank you, Councillor Hasler, for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an element of the response to that resolution. It's not the complete response to that.
So a subsequent question, Mr. Chairman. So there is going to be consultation with nearby residents and those outside the reserve to the goal and RFS.
Thank you, Councillor Hasler. Yes, that is correct. I wouldn't refer to it as engagement, however, or consultation. I would refer to it as engagement.
A corporate elected member would like to ask a question or speak against the motion. Councillor Swain is the second of the motion. Would you like to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
In the case, councillors, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare that motion carried. Moving on to item 12.10, which is rescind report. And I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, this report relates to council recording the formalised ownership of an unnamed road in a historical subdivision as public road by dedication under common law using the amending Local Government Act, Section 8, Part 3, Part B, and rescinding the motions to use this section of 16 and 17 of the Roads Act 1993.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Now call for a elected member to move the recommendation to become a motion. Thank you, Councillor Hook. Now get a seconder. It's a motion. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Hook, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I just found it the most fascinating reading, a sort of a little walk down through history, and it's amazing how these things turn up when you actually go looking for them. Pretty amazing stuff, and a bit of research that went on there. I thought at one stage that you really weren't going to get a resolution, so well done.
Now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Fuller is the seconder. Do you wish to
No,
speak?
thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare the motion carried. Item 12.11. I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation before you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval to accept the proposed rescheduling of phased capital works funding for a renovation and fit out small plant shed upgrade from the 2021-22 year to this current financial year for the previously approved sum.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'm calling on elected member to move that recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Luke has moved the motion and seconded by Councillor Hasler. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. Councillor Hasler is the second of the motion. Do you wish to speak? Well, then I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare the motion carried. And thank you, Mr. Bartlett, for your contribution to our July ordinary meeting. We're now moving on to item number 13, which is the Chief Financial Officer's report. And I'm going to call on Ms. Menny to detail the recommendation you see before you, which is in relation to our investments. And the recommendation is that a principal investment of 61.61 million and 6,000 for all funds today to be received and noted. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, details of the council's investment portfolio are contained in the report for your review.
Councillors, I'll now move, well, I'd like to ask the councillor to move that be accepted. I can't move that. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, and seconded by Councillor Swan. Councillor Campbell, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Call for elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. Councillor Swain is the second to the motion. Just to speak.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just before I put the motion, I'd like to congratulate our finance team on the awesome work that you do. It's really quite difficult at the moment to get decent investment on the money that we have, but you're doing a fantastic job, and it's great to see the detail in the report. Councillors, in saying that, I'd now like to put the motion. All in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Item 14, councillors, is notice of motion. I'll question it on notice. We don't have any for our July ordinary meeting, so next is closed meeting. So I'd like to call on elected member to move the motion that we go into closed council for consideration. Thank you, Councillor Hook, and seconded by Councillor Moses. May I put that motion? All in favour? Against? Declare that motion carried. Our first item on the agenda